Is it might be because like I'm feeling kind of sick, but I want to watch like city planning.
Is brought to you by Skillshare. Visit the link in the description for 2 months off a premium subscription. This is a brief history of city planning in the United States, but our story begins before the US existed. Prior to European settlement, cities existed in the territory now known as the US. Pueblo culture built impressive cities, as did the Mississippian culture. Cahokia is considered one of the largest pre-European cities north of Mexico. The Spanish were the first European power to set up shop in what is now the US. St. Augustine, Florida was founded in 1565. As the Spanish were founding other cities in the US Southwest, they also codified one of the first examples of European planning in the New World, the Law of the Indies. The law laid out requirements for locating a new city, as well as its design and layout. Cities had to have a central square, for example, like Santa Fe. The 1600s saw the French and English join the Spanish in founding new cities, particularly along the Atlantic seaboard. New York, Boston, Charleston, and Philadelphia.
Oh, look at that. I found this.
Were all founded in this period. By the time the US declared its independence, cities had popped up all over the East Coast and Southwest. Some of the larger cities, like Boston, were...
Hey, congratulations, Gators Daily, for being unbanned. I love that Gators Daily is in the chat going, Gator Daily unbanned. Pog you, like as though it's someone else. Like it's literally you, man. Guys, have you heard about that Twitter account, Gators Daily, unbanned? Why the fuck did you get banned in the first place? It's so dumb.
Were starting to look quite urban, while others closer to the Appalachian frontier were little more than forced to keep out the understandably unwelcoming native tribes. The founding of the United States didn't do much to create an urban nation. The Land Ordinance of 1785, which begins the gridding of the American West, was designed to create a nation of farmers. Its author, Thomas Jefferson, hated cities. To be fair, at this point, the US population was 95% rural. This rural emphasis was unfortunate because shortly after the Founding Fathers signed the Constitution, which doesn't even mention cities, something big started happening. In the beginning of the 19th century, technological innovations such as the steam engine and power loom started transforming the global economy. Work that had been done by artisans in villages was now done in factories by unskilled labor. New firms and factories would locate in cities to find enough workers, and workers moved to cities to expand their options for work. Cities started to grow fast. People were moving to cities faster than housing could be built, and many of the migrants couldn't afford good housing anyway. Workers also had to live within walking distance of their factory, as no practical mass transit existed yet. Overcrowding became a serious problem. Sanitation was terrible. Human waste was typically disposed of in on-site septic tanks or cesspools. Cities smelled.
Not much has changed, by the way. Okay, we do have working sewage systems, unless you live in like parts of Alabama where a lot of black communities exist, as a matter of fact, and the government just does not care enough, and you have literal poop above ground when septic tanks fucking can no longer handle the poop demand.
Terrible. Disease was a constant threat. The smoke coming off the factories added to the noxious environment. It really is important to understand that the city of the mid-1800s was not a nice place to be. For many people, it was their first experience with urban living, and it was profoundly negative.
Oh, not poop demand, poop supply.
Industrial cities needed reform. Disease was literally a life and death situation, so that came first. New gravity-based self-cleansing sewer systems came onto the scene in the 1840s. The implementation of a comprehensive sewer system designed to clear away waste required a citywide sanitary survey to understand the topography of the city, as well as a mapping of the cesspools, outhouses, and sources of waste. These surveys are some of the earliest acts of planning in U.S. cities, and by 1907, every major U.S. city had a sewer system. Sewers provided fresh air, and so too did some of the first comprehensive urban park systems. Some of the most notable were designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, including Central Park. Housing reform followed sanitation reform. The problem was brought to the fore by reformers and journalists like Jacob Riis, whose photos published in the book How the Other Half Lived exposed the terrible conditions people lived in during the 1880s. Tenements were claustrophobic and exceedingly overcrowded, filled with the many immigrants from Europe coming to New York by the day. The Lower East Side was almost certainly the most crowded neighborhood in the world at the time, with over 1,000 people per acre. New York's Tenement House Act, passed in 1901, required a separate bathroom in each unit, courtyards, and improved fire safety measures. Many other cities...
New York suffering from not having this many, not having this level of regulation that they had in 1888 now, by the way.
These passed similar laws in the coming years. These early initiatives to fix the industrial city focused on practical social matters like health and housing. There were less than practical reformers too. Some wanted to improve the city through monuments, slum clearance, and neoclassical architecture. Let's move the timeline to 1893, the world's Columbian Exhibition in Chicago. It was known as the White City, chiefly designed by architect Daniel Burnham.
What?
The White City became a template for the City Beautiful movement, a not so good method of improving cities, but a pretty good name for a city planning YouTube channel. Most of Burnham's plans, like the
Wait, what? Is this guy? Wait, what did he just say? He said I modeled my channel after the White City. What the fuck?
one for San Francisco never panned out, but his plans for Chicago and the Washington Mall were mostly completed as intended. At the beginning of the 20th century, city planning coalesced into a distinct profession. Its roots were in the drafting of new cities from the colonial era, the establishment of railroad towns of the West, the social reformers of major cities, and the grand visions of city beautiful designers. These differing visions of city planning were debated at the first City Planning Conference in 1909, with the battle lines drawn between the social reformers and the technical aesthetic planners. Planners, no matter their perspective, had begun to feel optimistic about urban living. Electric streetcars were zipping through the streets, and their speed and low fares made it possible.
What the fuck, Wantep? Wantep, no! Wantep, your mom is gonna take your privileges again. You're gonna get grounded.
To build new housing on the periphery for the middle class, easing overcrowding. Another transportation technology changed everything. The Model T started rolling off of Ford's assembly line in 1908. Millions of the cars and millions of other cars would be sold in the next decade or two. Cars allowed people to commute further out from their homes in the suburbs, and this radically altered cities. It's a fundamental change similar to the urbanization of the last century. Most planners of the time thought that suburban development was a good thing. Cities were better than before, but what could be better than living in larger homes with greener surroundings? Enthusiasm about suburbs, combined with the poor quality of early suburb design, led to some key planning responses. First, the federal government developed a set of standard zoning and planning enabling acts that cities could adopt. These model acts gave cities the authority to do zoning, approve subdivision street layouts, form planning commissions, and adopt master plans. This added regulation and minimum standards to the development of the suburbs. Zoning ordinances were around in the 2 decades prior to the Model Enabling Acts, promoted primarily by commercial interests, trying to protect their land value from new development that attracted immigrants and people of color. Zoning then, as it does now, can be useful or used as a tool of exclusion. But the Supreme Court, in the case of Village of Euclid versus Ambler Realty,
literally almost always used as a tool for oppression and exclusion.
3 months foggers.
found zoning to be constitutional, and it was here to stay. Others saw the slapdash speculative suburban development and believed there was a better way. They were the garden suburb designers, notably Clarence Stein and Henry Wright. Heavily influenced by Ebenezer Howard and the English garden city designers, they developed new concepts for the suburbs that promoted shared ownership of common green space and separate circulation for pedestrians that kept them away from cars. Their most famous community was Radburn, New Jersey, built in 1929. This rapid growth outward created entire metropolitan regions, and the notion of regional planning got its start.
My man said Pittsburgh is the best, bro. Fuck that guy. Okay, dude.
Almost a year less than 3.
Sure, dude.
In this era. Notable regional plans and planners include Patrick Geddes and his ideas about conurbations, the Regional Plan Association of America, with Stein and Wright as members, and the publishing of the Regional Plan of New York and its environs, a landmark regional plan published in 1929. At the same time, people were moving out of the city.
Bro, why, dude? Why? Like, chatters are so obsessive. They find one fucking video, they see me scroll over it, and they see me skip it, and they keep spamming it. It's like, just stop spamming, dude. I promise. I saw your video. I scrolled over it. Okay? And now I don't want to watch it. I'm letting you know right now. I was trying to be polite and not tell you. I hope that you would fucking see it on your own. But now I'm telling you, I will not be watching that video of the WRC driver, the female driver. Chat, don't link vids challenge
Hassle.
impossible.
city in cars, others were moving in. It was one of the most dramatic demographic shifts in U.S. history, the Great Migration. This was the migration of over 6 million African Americans from the South to northern cities from about 1916 to 1970. In the years after the Civil War and emancipation, 80% of Black Americans still lived in the rural South, but by 1970, 80% lived in cities, half of them in northern cities. For immigrants, cities were a tool of assimilation and advancement, but for the millions of Black Americans who moved to cities to work in urban factories, they found segregation instead. Cities during the 30s and 40s were already very different than they were at the beginning of the century. Wealthy and middle-class families were leaving for the suburbs for new tract housing, leaving behind poor and Black families. At this time, most jobs in retail were still in the central city, and commuters needed a way to get back and forth. Cities started building freeways, first using state funding. To make room, they cleared poor, immigrant, and Black neighborhoods, citing slum clearance and upgrading. This destruction of the city continued through urban renewal. It's a story told in 3 acts. The first is the Housing Act of 1937. This act pitted the policy of public housing activists like Catherine Bauer against commercial real estate interests who hated sharing the city with poor residents. They wanted to replace slums with flashy real estate projects. By the Housing Act of 1949 and 1954, the real estate interests had won. The public housing that did get built was intended for white middle-class families, built in demolished Black neighborhoods. Middle-class whites didn't move in, and they became homes for poor Black families. Those housing acts assumed that middle-class rents would pay for all of the maintenance, and they didn't provide federal funding for upkeep. When poor families moved in, the buildings quickly deteriorated without federal funding. The result was cities bereft of historic neighborhoods with bleak modernist towers in their place.
Wait, what the fuck? I don't know if I like this channel that much. I feel like this overlooks a fuckload of racial inequality that's built into that system. For example, not being able to take out mortgages or loans, like not being able to get loans to do like any sort of capital improvement on your own houses. Like that was literally by design. And as a matter of fact, the reason why all of those like destroyed properties in Black neighborhoods were destroyed as a consequence of not being able to make capital improvements that was systemically enforced, even in the North as well, in the Jim Crow North as well as the Jim Crow South, obviously. And that led to destruction and blockbusting, where developers would purposely take advantage of the reality that like Black homeowners were not able to make capital improvements, and they would come in and just like buy every property available. Like me, a homeowner who serves you an ad at the top of the hour, of course. What I do, you know, you yourself are the chatter. I myself am the landlord, business owner, if you will, serving you an ad break at the top of the hour. Of course, I still tell you, like, there is a way that you can avoid those ads. You can subscribe
10 months of free
for
content.
$5,
Thank
$4,
you, Daddy
not
Bezos.
$5 anymore, for the month at least. You can subscribe for free if you have a Twitch Prime. You can also use an ad block or a VPN. Hasan's Femboy made another 5 gifty. Thank you, Hasan's Femboy made. It's not a political channel, Failfish. Dude, are you fucking stupid? If you're talking about a brief history of U.S. city planning, there is not a single moment of that concept that is not political, dude. Like, this is incredibly reductive, right? But city planning has always, housing and city planning has always been at the heart of segregation, which he described in looser terms. It's like the most political concept you can talk about. I mean, I was already a little sussed out. Like, it was a little sussy baka because he made it seem like, you know, people were founding New York. It's like, how did they find it, dude? What happened? Wow, we got a Nazi, boys. Black drove white away from them. Now cry for help. Aha, nobody lived with blacks, even you. Dude, you are insane. What a pathetic fucking loser that guy is. Holy shit, dude. No, motherfucker. Nobody wants to live with you because you're a horrible, worm-ass, racist motherfucker who just fucking seethes with anger and jealousy, dude. What a pathetic existence, dude. Imagine still being a fucking Nazi in 2021. What a fucking piece of shit. What a garbage, pathetic fucking existence you have when you fucking dwell in a goddamn basement all fucking day seething, angry at the world. That you will never get a crumb of fucking legitimacy, attention. Your life is meaningless as fuck. And you recognize that every fucking day you inch closer and closer away to death.
Sag.
So sad. Just keep going.
It should be pretty clear that many of the planning solutions to the problems of the industrial city just created more problems themselves. It was certainly clear to those who were displaced by freeways and urban megaprojects. In the 1960s and 1970s, urban residents began fighting back against top-down planning that ignored the wishes of residents and disproportionately hurt poor and minority groups. One of the most prominent early battles is also one of the most famous, the battle over the Lower Manhattan Expressway between Jane Jacobs and Robert Moses. Jacobs was an activist and journalist living in Greenwich Village. Moses was New York's master builder, responsible for the construction of many bridges, freeways, and public housing projects. He was losing influence by the 1960s, however, and Jacobs, along with other activists,
I forgot to run
managed
the
to
ad. I'm
halt the
running it
Lower
now.
Manhattan Expressway project. Jacobs' book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, is a critique of modernist planning and urban renewal, and became one of the most influential books on planning. Jacobs wasn't the only one fighting against urban freeways and urban renewal. Residents of cities across the U.S. had had enough. Freeway construction was halted in San Francisco and Portland. New metro systems in the Bay Area, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. were built. These impressive victories could not stop urban renewal and freeway construction entirely. The federal government still provided enormous sums of money to states to build more urban freeways as fast as possible, thanks to the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. This exacerbated the exodus known as white flight, called that because for the most part, black families could not rent or own in the suburbs. Restrictive covenants, racism in the real estate profession, and redlining by banks meant that black families couldn't get mortgages, and even if they could, they wouldn't be told of listings in white neighborhoods. This proved doubly bad for black families, as now jobs were migrating to the suburbs, in some cases in what are known as edge cities. Many of these cities are only accessible by car and located far from urban centers where black families lived. This 1-2 punch of neighborhood-destroying urban renewal and suburb-generating freeway construction began to slow down in the 1970s. Urban renewal ended in 1973. Much of the interstate freeway network had been built by the end of the 1970s, and new regulations made it much harder to build them through urban areas. The revolts against top-down planning at the beginning of the 1960s had become popular opinion by the 1970s, particularly with people hostile toward government generally in the Vietnam and Watergate eras. So-called experts were no longer trusted to know what was best for cities and people. People decided that planners didn't deserve the power they had, and there would be no more Robert Moseses. At the same time, planning academics agreed with the people and rebuked top-down planning. Marxist theorists began to explain urban growth and change as movements of capital. Planning
I mean, it's true, but also, yeah, I didn't pre-watch. He did bring it up. Apologize, you shat on him too early. Yeah, I'm sorry. He brought
was a
it
tool
up.
of capitalists. Planning became a pretty lonely profession without a direction. The era of master builder was over. What would become of planners? They evolved and specialized, thanks in part to many new laws that gave planners something to do. The Environmental Protection Agency was founded in 1970, and the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Superfund Act, and the National Environmental Policy Act all made city planning much.
Today I found out that the Environmental Protection Agency literally lied after 9/11 to protect the interests of Wall Street and told people that the fucking post like in the aftermath of the wreckage of the 9/11 like fires that continued for 100 extra days. Yeah, I watched Democracy Now! This morning, whatever, shut up. That they literally fucking lied and made it seem as though that area was habitable and that children could still go to school and that people could still go back to work, and they just fucking breathed that shit in for like months. Habitable.
Congrats on being you.
much more complicated, as environmental
What's wrong with Democracy Now? Nothing. I love Democracy Now.
concerns had to be considered when
My back
permitting
hurts
new land
so
uses.
much.
City
Sub to
planners
you
became
after
local
only 4
experts on
months
an
of
increasing
starting
number
my
of
first
federal and state
full-time desk
programs
job.
meant to minimize the negative impacts of new development. The Federal Community Development Act of 1974 replaced urban renewal and provided grants to communities to build and maintain a wide variety of projects, including housing, public utilities, parks, and transportation. Planners had to develop plans to apply for the community development block grants. Transportation planning changed too. The changes were slow, but transportation planners began to think about all modes of transportation, not just the car. The first bike lanes appeared in the 1970s. Cities began to invest in new light rail lines in the 1980s. The federal government began to require better regional transportation plans as well. Planners became experts in all the technical aspects of their job, but they also became educators, facilitators, and advocates. They lacked some of the raw power they had before, but still pioneered new approaches to undoing some of the harm of the previous 60 years.
After I said that millions of people that went back to downtown New York, the financial district, thinking that the EPA was on their side and cleared them and that it wasn't a fucking public safety concern, this dipshit went and said, who gives a fuck?
Hey, Hasan, is a pretty cool and interesting video on how a
I don't know,
Russian
man.
gas
I feel
company
like
is trying to take over the world market through soccer sponsorships.
Logical
Here's
fish.
the
I
link
see
if
myself.
you want to watch
What?
it sometime.
Kind of feels like, you know, the families of those people probably give a
Made
fuck.
it to 11 months. Yo, Hasan, can I see your full
Oh no,
t-shirt?
LA is bad with
PLS
public
and looks dope
transportation.
at
Looks like you have to
Hasanabi.
get a sports car, you fucking bougie weirdo. Just because LA is bad for public transportation doesn't mean you need to get a luxury vehicle. You don't need half the things you're trying to purchase, by the way. Unlocked rich weirdo. Don't live in LA then, you fucking bougie weirdo. Champagne socialist complains because he chooses to live in an expensive area. POV, watching a rich person complain about people telling him he's a class enemy. Grifter Andy is mad, sad. Bro. Wait, I wanna look up something here real quick. Maybe I'm wrong. What's the website where you can fucking take a look at like this person's other comments? What's the website? Oh, logs IFR. This, yeah. Hold on. Let's take a look. Oh, he's written some in XQC's chat. Let me just see something here real quick. Can't load anything. God damn it. It won't let me. No, he's a juicer. He's a juicer. He's talking about Whippy and shit. Why do you care so much about these weirdos? I like to see
Hasan.
like what they
Hope
have to
you're
say
well.
in other people's chats. I like to know what else they're doing, you know what I mean? Like what they're up to.
Hi, I'm weirdo.
I want to know what else he's saying though. I mean, he's got no answer. Like, what's up?
I start grad school
Kinda
tomorrow.
sad.
So
Some
this will
cities
probably
implemented
be
new
the
smart
last
growth
time I can
measures,
watch your
including
stream,
urban growth
Saj.
boundaries. The practice of Euclidean zoning began to receive pushback, criticized for its use as a tool of exclusion and its
Amaranth,
promotion
you
of
already know
car-only
us.
development. Cities encouraged transit-oriented development in the suburbs to give residents an alternative to ever-increasing freeway traffic. Urban challenges remain today. Gentrification and high housing prices are pushing residents out of cities. Car usage is
Isn't it kind of fucked up to go through people's logs from another chat on your stream in front of everybody? No. If it hurts your back, you should try a real job.
Hi, Hasan.
Higher than China. Good one, Hasan. China has more people in prison, you buffoon. I love when you speak for groups of people you know nothing about. Nice tactics of yours. Pause the video, predict what he's going to say while doing your cute little voice making fun of him. Your brown noser's just eating this shit right up.
Hasan. Now do a kickflip.
Oh, this might be like a fake account. July created a following since. Now you got the whole hood going through your accounts, dude. How do you fucking like that? Let's see. Let's see. I want to...
Very cool. Thank you, Hasan.
Yeah, we like to do a little logs checking.
I'm weird. Smile.
Dude, the website is not fucking working. Go back to smoking meth. My grandparents are dead. I would tell them to take the vaccine if they were alive. The FDA never approves anything harmful, Steven. Well, I think he's a hate watcher of Destiny as well, it seems like.
"9 months baby hoggers hyperclap."
Unironically, in Maya's chat, Camping Chattooga, do you have any ivermectin?
Hi, previous Dono. I am currently in grad school.
The only good quality about the shout out, dude, it's kind of funny. Like, I like checking people. Men jump. CX in the motherfucking chat. Poggers. If the U.S. government is going to be spending too much of my tax dollars on the military, they better at least be killing some brown people. I guess it's true what they say. You can't do meth only once. I see the meth is treating you well, Steven. John Zerka is exactly the dipshit you expect to watch male empowerment podcast. Dude, he's so sad, dude. Like, is this any way to live, man? I mean, is this any way to live? Like, listen, I mean, that's so sad, dude.
Hey,
you just like go to everyone's fucking channels and just like cry. It really is sad. To just be like terminally fucking grumpy, dude. I said from another chat, you dipshit. Pretty good takes I see there, honestly. Really? Killing brown people? Like, you want the American tax dollars that you spend on the military to like go kill more brown people? You think that's a good take? You're fucking disgusting, dude. I mean, I'm banning you, but it's probably good, to be honest. Like, I'll put you out of your fucking misery, dude. There you go.
Howdy.
It's probably better for you that you will, I don't know, go out and like do some other shit. Look what he said on Nick. Texas won't let me murder my baby. I want to murder babies. Oh, God, that's so sad. Hopefully you get better, man. I truly mean it. Like, I hope you get better.
Is still incredibly high, even given what we now know about their negative impacts. Cities are still segregated by race and income. Self-driving cars could have far-reaching impacts, some we still can't predict. There will be lots for planners to do in the future, and now they have a rich history to reflect on and learn from. Planners, as well as anyone else, can also learn a lot from the more than
Thank you, Azan's Femboy Maid, for another
25,000 courses over at Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators.
Okay, this is done.